Hello, and welcome to another episode of Film Seizure, where this week we discuss the Coen Brothers' 2000 awesome film, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Anyway.
And we are off.
Yes.
We are RUNNOFT.
As you can hear, with me are Jason Oliver and Jeff Arbuckle.
Hey.
I'm Chuck Moore. And the 20th anniversary of Oh Brothers this year, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about where that 20 years went, guys. Where'd it go?
I don't know. We could technically say this is the 40th anniversary because this year has been about 20 years.
This movie is half my life ago. That's weird.
That is crazy.
That is great. Yeah.
Kind of strange. It doesn't miss a beat. I tell you what, this movie's timeless. You could watch this movie in 1,000 years and it will still be delightful.
Yeah, I've got some stuff to say about that later, but yeah, I was there were little things, and it's always the little things with me. There were little things that were sprinkled throughout this movie that I found to be recognizable of a lot of other things, but nothing specifically, if that makes sense. It just styles and you know, I don't know.
That in a way is a good way of describing the Coen Brothers because they, I think, more than anyone in the film industry as movie makers, are the best at taking their influences and really showcasing their influences, but making them something wholly their own. Yeah. In a lot of ways, they're probably one of the modern masters of postmodern filmmaking in that regard. Like they are just very, very aware. They like in history of comedy, of movie making, but a lot of times that stuff is generations old, right? Mm-hmm. So they're able to mask it a little bit easier as their own, but also update it. Yeah. So when we get into sort of some of the source material for this movie, we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, 100%. And if you made me pick, gun to my head, my favorite filmmakers, it would probably be the Coen Brothers. Definitely current filmmakers would be the Coen Brothers.
They're way up there for me.
Yeah. I mean, they make movies that are funny and moving, and I don't know, those two things for me usually hit on what I like in a movie. If you can make me feel something while also making me laugh, I am going to have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually really good. A really good point, because like a lot of my one of the things that I was going to compare this to, and again, I'm going to save it for a little bit until we get closer to the end, but one of the things I compare this to is definitely that, like, and where there's a whole stretch of the other thing I'm going to compare this to. I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't want to go into it right now, but there's a whole stretch of that other thing that I saw a lot in this, where it's that exact thing, where it's like there's some really funny stuff, but then there's also some heartfelt moments. While this movie does kind of mask the heartfelt a little bit more, I think. Whereas it's more, to me, it's more like just brief glimpses of that heartfelt, but it's still there as an undercurrent.
Yeah, I think for me, what is that?
Stephen Root.
Oh, Steve.
Okay, that's a weird place to put that. Okay.
This for me is like
just keeping you off balance.
A Vonnegut story almost, in the way that it deals with some pretty heavy topics, right? During the time of, with racism and you got the Ku Klux Klan and everything, and the Coen Brothers found a way to put that in its proper place, right? With some comedy as well.
Yeah, they made them cartoon characters,
Yeah.
which is and to me the best way of dealing with abject evil like that. You know,
Right. You don't give it any real power. You give,
Right.
yeah,
you make them look like they're idiots.
yeah.
They
Keystone Cops.
Yeah,
they make them look like they're idiots, but they also make them look like a bunch of drama nerds, you know, who are putting on a high school musical
Yeah.
with
which is odd,
highly
honestly.
synchronized and coordinated marching patterns and
Yeah, honestly, most people don't know this. The trilogy that is High School Musical is actually about the Ku Klux Klan.
Well, now I have a whole new reason to watch again. So what is this? This movie is 1937, right? It
Yes.
takes place during the Great Depression.
the Great Depression.
The Great Depression.
We got this depression on.
With there was also talk of like Reformation candidates in the
The
South.
reform candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
But who we have? We have Everett.
Ulysses Everett McGill.
Yeah, he has orchestrated a plan to break out from a chain gang that they're on. And I just want to point to the fact now that the music in this movie is as important as almost anything else in this film.
This soundtrack is what I call good country. That really old, you know,
Old timey.
old
People like that old timey sound.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that very earthy kind of, you know.
This is also arguably a movie where the soundtrack's reputation has surpassed it.
Yeah, it was a Grammy winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would argue more people know the soundtrack than they know the movie.
I would agree with that. I have many
that's
times as I've seen this movie, I've heard the soundtrack way more. I mean, it's so much easier to just listen to music, but I've heard the soundtrack, I mean, more than any other soundtrack to a film, I'm sure.
And not being you know, folk country fans, I know who Alison Krauss is. I know who Emmylou Harris is.
Yep.
You know, it's like those are pretty big time people.
Well, T-Bone, you know, he's the music director on this, the producer. So, I mean, he's done just an amazing amount of work with a lot of amazing sort of not pseudo, but sort of that outlaw country, that sort of Southern Gothic sound, you know? Yeah.
Little known fact, I actually do own an Alison Krauss CD.
Huh.
In the late 90s. Yeah.
Didn't she do an album with Robert Plant also?
Yes.
Yes. Plant and Krause.
Yep. So what do we got? They escape the chain gang.
And there's two buddies with him, the people he was like literally chained to, which is Pete, who's John Turturro, and Tim Blake Nelson's Delmar O'Donnell.
Yep.
So you got you got the one guy there, John Turturro, who's the old standby Coen brother character, right? John Turturro's in a lot of Coen Brothers stuff, but then I believe this was the first time that Tim Blake Nelson and George Clooney had worked with the Coens.
Probably. George Clooney has a very interesting trajectory leading up to this movie. Yeah, because I mean, like, obviously in the 80s, he was paying his dues. You know, he wasn't really using his last name to get anywhere. You know, he was a bit character on Roseanne. He made Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah. And then he hit it big with ER.
Yeah.
Where he wasn't even really the main star, I don't think of that. He was just the heartthrob. He was you know, he was the what's the guy from what's the character's name from Grey's Anatomy that everybody fawns over?
McSteamy? McDreamy? It's one of the mix.
McSquishy Pants. I don't know.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of the guy who, it was obvious he was going to be something else. And then he was Batman. And while that is absolutely not his fault, there are plenty of times where a movie like Batman and Robin would have utterly destroyed careers.
Right.
And then he immediately bounced back with Out of Sight, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's really got it.
Yeah, I had a very rocky relationship with Clooney because he was a hero to me in Killer Tomatoes, and then
Yeah.
ER is like not my thing. And you know, it's kind of similar to Brad Pitt. Maybe there's a little bit of jealousy that these guys are so goddamn handsome. I don't know.
I don't worry about that. I know where I stand with this.
It took me some time.
For however you want.
It took me some time to like them as actors, and I think Oh Brother is what solidified Clooney for me. Much like I think Burn After Reading solidified Brad Pitt for me. You give these guys something interesting and funny to do and show, and not that Brad Pitt wasn't in important movies or acted well before that, or Clooney for that matter, but that's just what it took for me to be like, I like that guy.
I think for me, it was From Dusk Till Dawn. When I saw that, I was like, yeah, this guy's fun. He's really pulling this movie along, and he does. Like, Clooney really carries that movie. And then I would say Out of Sight, which I like a lot. And I was just kind of going through a Soderbergh phase then anyway.
Meanwhile, I was going through an Elmore Leonard phase.
Yeah.
I was more in the Elmore Leonard camp there, yeah, for sure.
And then, but yeah, that's true because there was also Jackie Brown.
And
had
Michael
come out
Keaton
before that.
was in both
right?
of them. Yeah,
and then Get Shorty was around that time too. So it was definitely like a big Elmore Leonard thing happening in Hollywood that you could connect to a lot of like big auteur type directors. And then Three Kings. That was just a phenomenal movie, I thought, and it had Spike Jonze and Ice Cube. It's just this really kind of quirky trio of characters, which in a way sort of precedes Oh Brother in that regard.
Is it before Oh Brother?
Yeah. There's 99.
Oh, okay. Then because I love Three Kings. It has one of my favorite scenes like ever.
There's a funny story about the behind the scenes of Three Kings, because Jamie Kennedy was making a little movie that I dearly love called The Specials, where he was painted blue. He was a blue superhero character, and he was filming those movies at the same time. So he was like getting constantly chewed out for showing up with still the blue tint in his skin. And there's a whole behind the scenes story. I just sold that like shit.
Well, I think that one of the reasons why Clooney survived Batman and Robin is because he was able to still attract the attention of important filmmakers who ended up making like really popular, well-regarded movies. Yeah. So you think about Thin Red Line with Terrence Malick. It's a small role, but he's in that movie. Out of Sight with Steven Soderbergh, of course, and then Three Kings with David O. Russell. All just really good choices to make that stretched his capabilities and also were very well-regarded movies.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling.
And then he just never stopped from there, right? I mean, he's just made good decision after good decision for the most part.
Yeah, and I've got a feeling at some point we probably will talk about Three Kings just because, from what I understand, David O. Russell is insane.
Oh, he's a crazy person.
Yeah.
He's all the behind-the-scenes stuff on I Heart Huckabees, yeah.
Yeah, he was the one that was like threatening to like kick Jamie Kennedy's ass or something over the blue.
And he like was verbally abusive to Lily Tomlin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we should probably get back to the movie, right?
Yeah, let's get back to this movie that we've got here. So they take out. We don't actually see them leave. They just have escaped.
Right.
And they're just running through. What is that? A cotton field or a cornfield? What is
cotton
that?
or corn? I wasn't sure exactly.
Something that grows at least tall enough for them to duck into. And you see them kind of, and it's kind of smart that they're doing it. They're looking back to see when the horse guy is going to be turning around or whatever. The horse guy, whatever.
You're doing such a good job this morning at describing. These 11 a.m. starts. I hate them.
I know, right? Let's pull back the curtain a little bit. It's 11 a.m., guys. It's,
so we have horse guy.
We're in coffee drinking hours.
Yes.
I'm in mimosa drinking hours.
Nice.
I got one of my ciders here.
Ooh, I should be drinking. Maybe that'll help. But so they're escaping from the chain gang, and running from Horse Guy, and they end up. I think first they end up on the blind seers. They try to jump a train, actually.
Yeah, and that two of them get on, but is it John Turturro that doesn't?
Yes.
Yeah, he
And
doesn't
then
make
it pulls them all off.
That's really well done.
Yeah.
It almost looks like real.
And it's a very Sam
Clooney's all
Raimi-
stood up in there, and he's just talking about anybody a smithy.
Yeah.
Somebody practice the metallurgic arts.
Yeah.
You gotta talk about Clooney here because he is like way smarter than you expect him to be.
Yeah.
Except for he's also an idiot.
Yeah, he's not necessarily smart. He's just well spoken.
He knows big words.
Yeah, he knows big words.
And it's that very Southern vocabulary too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's folksy but articulate.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, hell, why did he go to jail?
Well, yeah,
Later
exactly.
Find out is that he's practicing law without a license.
Yep.
Which is exactly
it makes perfect sense. Yes.
Yeah.
So and there's also a nice little Sam Raimi like shot where when he hits the deck and then he's trying to hold on, but he's scraping away.
Yep.
Except for it's a lot more watchable than a Sam Raimi shot like that.
Yeah.
That's my least favorite part of every Sam Raimi movie.
You don't need a Dramamine to watch it.
No. And I don't need to be like, my fingers, but but anyway, yeah. So this brings up one of my very favorite moments here, because at this point now they got to try to figure out who's leading this outfit, and so they're going to vote on it. And there's just 3 guys, so you can almost expect how this goes, but it takes us for a different turn. You've got John Turturro, who says, "I'm going to vote for yours truly." And then George Clooney says, "Well, I'm voting for yours truly." And then they look to Tim Blake Nelson, and he's like, "All right, I'm with you, fellas."
And that's the part of the thing that's so clever about the Coens. They just leave the joke there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't draw it out. There's no fight about it. It is what it is now.
Yeah, because right after that, I think is
Moving
when
on.
the handcart comes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the handcart, this is the first literal reference to the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Which they say this film is based on that. I think it's more loosely. They borrowed some.
It's very loosely. Yeah.
And it's just got a little bit of its bloodstream in there, the Odyssey. But the blind seer basically predicts their future, right?
That they're not going to get to this treasure.
Yeah,
There will be obstacles.
But they will find treasure. It's just not the one that they expect.
Yes.
Right? Is the prognostication that this guy makes.
Right. Whereas in
the
the
whole
Odyssey, it was, "You're never going to get home."
Right. Right. But the whole idea, the reason that they escape in the first place is because Clooney buried $1.2 million somewhere.
Which, by the way, in 1937,
That's a lot of fucking money.
that's a fuckload of money.
I don't know if he robbed a Brinks truck or something
That's what he claims. Yeah.
Right. There wouldn't be that much money on there, but that's besides the point. Unless they had a lot of $1 million bills in there.
Right. Which is exactly one.
Yeah.
Which is enough. To be
A lot
honest
of them.
with you.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of
$1
$1 million bills.
Oh, well, whatever. But that's
How much was it? How much did you say it was?
1.2 million, which Tim Blake Nelson aptly says that's 500,000 a piece.
Yeah.
And then one of them, I think it's George Clooney. It's like it's Delmar is 400,000.
Yeah.
Well, whatever it is. Yeah. So they get a little bit of a ride from the handcart. They get a little bit of soothsayer action.
Yep.
And then
You go to Pete's cousin's
Wash.
house.
It's about $22 million today.
That's a lot of
Wow.
money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Which would probably be worth 200 million, 300 million now if they invest.
About 22 million. That's 500,000 a piece.
Yep. But Warsh Hogwallop, right? Is his cousin's name?
Yes.
God, yes. So
And
great.
Yeah, Washington Bartholomew Hogwallop.
yep. And man, is he an interesting guy. He does not look happy at all to see his cousin.
It's a depression.
Yeah.
Who's happy during a depression?
Nobody. He's just cutting sticks for no reason. Like, he's whittling, but he's not making anything. Like,
Right.
every time you see him.
Which I always just assumed as a little kid. That's because I saw it in cartoons all the time with, like, you know, like Heckle and Jekyll or something. It's like, oh, that's just what Southerners do.
Yeah, they just fucking cut wood all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Prove me wrong, South. Tell
In the
me
North,
what you do.
in the North, we cut cheese. In the South, they cut wood.
Yeah, farts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Pete's cousin Washington gets them out of their triple set of chains.
Yeah, because he's like, I reckon you want out of them chains.
Yep. And then they end up eating a horse.
A horse who had turned.
Starting to turn on me.
I think he's starting to turn on me. But this is where you learn that, Clooney is a very dapper dude, right? He
has
uses,
a very, very specific hair jelly.
Yep. And he combs his hair.
Dan.
Combs his hair constantly, puts it in a hairnet when he's sleeping.
And every time he wakes up, my hair. Dude, I get it, George. I get it, man. When I wake up in the morning, my hair's like all over the place. I wish it wasn't. I wish I could be a Dapper Dan man, too.
I'm still wondering where all my hair is.
Yeah, Chuck has that problem.
I'll transplant some if you'd like.
Chuck just moved it to his beard.
Yep. At first, it started to migrate to my back. Now it's on my face.
Well, I've got plenty of butt hair if you need any.
Oh, man.
I don't even want to think about that.
Well,
Nope.
it'll give you hair on top.
I don't want no butt hair from any mud butt boy. I'll tell you that.
We're not there yet.
All right, so go ahead. Where are we, Jeff? Tell us.
So they're gonna stay at Wash's. They wake up in the middle of the night because Wash has turned them in for the bounty
or ransom.
Bounty. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And it's like, hey man, it's a lot of money. And the cops are idiots because they're going to burn down the barn that they're sleeping in. Except for they did not do a good enough job with the gasoline, and it goes back to the ammunitions truck, the paddy wagon that's got all the bullets in it.
That's not popcorn.
And so they basically escape. And George Clooney has gotten a plan to get a new car because they need a car. They need some mode of transportation. He figures that they could get a used car for the money that they can get from selling Wash's gold pocket watch. To which Pete gets really, really upset because it's like, you stole from my family. It's like, yeah, well, your family just turned us over to the cops. And of course, Pete's like, well, you didn't know that. It's like, well, I was keeping this just in case.
Yep. That don't make no sense.
It actually kind of does.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm on board. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's George Clooney's, like dreamy expressions or something. I don't know, but it's like, hey, I'm on board with that idea. You take that. But anyway, this is when they come across a good old fashioned baptism, and it's kind of creepy. It's a little creepy.
I love that scene.
Me too.
So much.
I love that the song is amazing.
Yeah. It's so they're all singing a hymn, walking towards the river to get baptized, and they're all wearing their white robes and everything. And Delmar figures, hey, wait a minute, I want in on this. And he gets his sins washed away, which he figures gets him off the hook of anything he's ever done. And he convinces Pete to do it also, to which Ulysses thinks they're just morons.
Right.
Is it so that at this point?
This is the next after they leave there, they go to the crossroads.
This is where they go to the crossroads. Yeah.
Yes, and that's where they meet
Tommy Johnson.
Tommy Johnson, who sold his soul to the devil, who happens to be a white man.
Yeah,
for the ability to play the guitar really well.
Yeah, this is interesting. You know, Tommy Johnson was a real musician, Mississippi Delta blues artist.
Also played by a real musician too.
Yeah, and the Crossroads story is its own folklore in and of itself.
Yeah,
and it's only really briefly used here, but it's more commonly attributed to Robert Johnson,
right,
the other Mississippi Delta blues musician. But they both share that same sort of crossroads tale of the man who didn't have much talent, disappeared from the community for a while, came back and was an amazing guitarist and musician. So everyone attributed it to him selling his soul. Such a cool bit of Southern folklore.
It's a cool story, but it's also I wonder if white people made that story up because
there is a really good documentary about that on Netflix that you should check out. Yes.
Okay. I will do that.
Yep.
So yeah, I likened him to Robert Johnson, obviously, in this movie. I don't know what I was going to say. So go ahead.
Yeah. So they pick him up because he's hitchhiking, and they're not going to leave this guy out there in the middle of the hot Mississippi day. Which is kind of this is one of their kind of save the cat moments, right? Especially with Tommy Johnson directly. So they pick him up, and of course they're still, John Turturro and Tim Blake Nelson are still talking about being saved and all this, and they're still wet too. To which I can't remember exactly how George Clooney.
I'm the only one that's unaffiliated.
Well, he introduces them in a way where it's like, these two. My damp something. I can't remember exactly how.
Well, this scene has two of my favorite lines in the movie. Before the one that Chuck just mentioned, before they pick up Tommy Johnson, George Clooney calls the other two. He says, "You two are just dumber than a bag of hammers."
Yeah,
I use that all the
time. Yeah. So then this is when so they need some money. They got a car, but they need some money. And they find out that you can go to this radio station and record a song to a record.
Singing a can.
Singing to a can. And so this is probably one of the more famous. This is something that you see a lot in the promotional stuff and in clips and stuff. They sing, is it Man of Constant Sorrow? Is that
the
name of it?
Yep.
And so they sing that, and it's just like a little fun musical interlude.
And it
kind of breaks up the acts also.
Yeah, Clooney's performance there is so great because he doesn't look like he knows what he's singing. I can't tell for sure if he's making it up or if that's an old standard he's trying to remember, but just his delivery here is just so good.
Yeah.
There's also some clever camera work here by hiding his mouth behind the microphone, so that they could have a little bit of flexibility in post. Right. Yep.
And everything it turns out it's a real humdinger of a song. And they get they also because the guy who's recording is blind. They also say that there's 5 people in the band when there's only 4.
Yeah.
So they each get $10 and then another.
I think they actually said 5 people instead of 3. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Robert Johnson's there too.
Robert Johnson too. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because at first
he said 2 X's, so maybe he added 2 people. Maybe he said there were 6.
Oh, it might have, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at one point they said that because it's like the guy's blind. It's like, well, what type of music do you do? Do you do any of the how do you like Negro sound or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, yes, we do. In fact, we are. We are Negroes. And it's like, well, I don't record any Negro. Well, that's funny because we're not just our guitar.
Yeah, they flip it. Yeah,
or accompaniment. Yeah,
accompanist.
Yeah. So
accompanist.
And so anyway, it turns out that they're gonna send the song out to the radio stations.
But can we talk about the
Stephen Root?
insanity of Stephen Root's character.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is
How does he make his
absolutely
eyes go
batshit.
in two different directions?
I have no idea. I don't know how he makes the sounds that he makes, the little like twitches. They cut to him at one point while he's listening, and he makes alien sounds. I swear to God, like he's not a human.
He does
Oh
say
my
that's
God.
a mighty fine a picking and a singing, and apparently that's what the public thinks of this song. As we find
out later that it's a huge hit across Mississippi.
Mississippi.
It's
We got to beat that competition.
yeah, we got to sign them to a record deal before the competition comes.
But when they leave there, we pick up another important thread, which is the political election that's going on.
One of my all-time favorite movie villains, actors ever,
Charles
Durning. Yeah,
wearing a Hudsucker himself.
and he also is dressed almost exactly the same as Hopper from the Muppet movie.
That's funny.
That's really funny. Yep.
Yeah, so Doc Hopper. Anyway, so the he comes in with his entourage, one of which is his dumb son, to which later we find out he's running in a campaign against a guy who thinks that Pappy O'Daniel is all about cronyism and nepotism, and boy, doesn't that sound familiar. And he goes into this radio station and broadcasts like weekly or something to the state, or
The Pappy O'Daniel show.
to his constituency, and he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Because he's like, hey, if you go in there and sing into their box, into their can there, you get $10. And it's like, idiot, I'm not here. I'm Pappy O'Daniel. I do a show here. They broadcast my show. So he's kind of a jerk. He's a real dick to his son. But his son's an idiot too. I get it. And he's and so this is our first intersection with this character. And then Chuck, where do they go from here?
Where do they go from there? They drive with I honestly can't remember. I'm sorry. I'm still thinking about Pappy O'Daniel's show.
I think this is where they meet the sirens.
Yes.
Yeah, Tommy goes away at some point. I don't remember exactly what happens to him.
Well,
so they go and sit at a camp.
Yeah, he what do they say? He skedaddles or something like that. They make an offhanded mention about him.
They go camping somewhere, and Tommy's playing guitar,
and the cops show up.
Yeah, they decide to sleep out by the fire instead of the barn. And then the cops
show up to burn down the barn again, and that's when Tommy he just
RUNNOFTs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then at that point, so the next day, that's when they hear the siren song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
one of my other favorite songs in the movie.
Yeah, that's a great scene. Another literal, pull from the Odyssey for sure.
Yep.
But Turturro's reaction when he hears the song, they're driving down the road, and one of them's playing the banjo in the back seat, and Turturro just freaks out and starts biting his hand, and he's like, "Oh, we've got to stop, pull over."
Yeah.
And you have these three sexy siren ladies. Go ahead.
They get him drunk on moonshine, and then fade in. They're waking up on the rocks, and the sirens are gone, and they've gotten him drunk on moonshine. They've passed out, and both of them are there except for John Turturro. Pete is missing, but his clothes are perfectly laid out on a rock, and this scene is absolutely stolen by Tim Blake Nelson. He is just hysterical in his delivery. You see a little bit of like a movement under the shirt.
Oh yeah.
And he says they left his heart. And then out hops a little toad, And the way he delivers the line, I'm not even going to try to butcher it. But the way he delivers the line, they turned him into a horny toad, is absolutely, it kills me every time. Every
They
damn
turned
time.
him into a horned toad. I will attempt it.
Oh, it is priceless. So good. So he's convinced that the sirens have turned Pete into a toad. So he picks up the toad and puts it in a shoebox. George Clooney's like, that doesn't quite add up, but,
Yeah. I don't
but
think that's
I'll
Pete.
placate
I don't
you.
think that's Pete. Yeah.
So from here, I think this is when they run into. Have they run into Babyface Nelson yet? At this point, I don't think they have.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they already have.
They did because they
We
also
skipped that part.
yeah. So they also lost their car at one point.
Yeah.
And here comes this car that's just like bam, just driving like a bat out of hell down the road, and it's Babyface Nelson. Now, I don't want to be that guy, but Babyface Nelson was dead for 3 years by the time that this movie.
Oh
takes
yeah,
place.
well, yeah. I mean, what are you gonna
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, right? So he's shooting the cops. He's asking them to drive. He shoots some cows, to which Tim Blake Nelson said, "Oh, George, not the livestock."
What does Babyface Nelson hate more than coppers? Cows.
Yeah.
I think we've got this a little out of order because
Yeah, we do. Because
Pete's here for this scene.
Right. This takes place after they lose Tommy, and before they meet the sirens.
Because when they lost Tommy, they also lost the car.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So so they have a little interlude there with Babyface Nelson, and he ends up just like they end up getting the car from him, I think.
Well, they get the car. He leaves them the money because he's despondent. Then George Clooney talks about basically he diagnoses Babyface Nelson as bipolar, which is kind of interesting.
He is a doctor.
Yeah. Dentist.
Yeah.
Later he becomes a dentist.
Because he
And Tommy just walks off, or not Tommy. Babyface Nelson just walks off. He would if George were to hear me call him Babyface, he would not be too happy.
that's what sends him on a spiral.
Yep.
That's another brilliant part of this movie too, is every character that they run into once that may seem like just an isolated moment comes back into the film later kind of in a big way.
Yeah.
Everybody gets their final moment basically.
Yep.
We'll talk about that later.
Man, there's so many hallmarks of Coen Brother moments, right? Coen Brother hallmarks, like the way that the little old lady with no teeth in the bank, is the one who whispers to her husband, I would assume, that's Babyface Nelson, and he hears it, right? And that's the spiral, and he confronts her and yells in her face, and she's not. I guarantee you that woman's probably never acted in anything before and never acted in anything since. But the Coen Brothers find these faces that they like, and they ask people to just talk normally in a lot of ways or react normally in a lot of ways, and to get these just amazing organic performances from people in these sort of deadpan monotone deliveries. There's a scene with it's such a throwaway scene, but when a woman goes into the shop to buy the Soggy Bottom Boys record, and the shopkeeper says, we're sold out, right? And it's just this real deadpan back and forth.
Yeah.
But it's perfection, and it feels interesting, even though it's kind of just a plot tire, right?
Yeah, we got a shipment yesterday, but I'm sorry, we can't keep them in stock.
Right.
And that's it. And it's like, okay, all right.
And I like that we as the audience are learning about the growing popularity of the Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yep.
Well, they have no idea. If they had any idea, they could become famous today.
Right.
They could stop their trek for this treasure and become famous. There's a cool scene where Clooney throws the paper in the fire. I think it might be with Tommy Johnson there, maybe a little later. But as the paper burns, the front page burns behind it, there is an article that says Soggy Bottom Boys are huge, but nobody knows who they are, basically.
Yeah, because the
Story.
front page is telling George Clooney's story about where they have to go before something is flooded or sunk.
Yes,
and that's on the front page, but page 2 is the Soggy Bottom Boys.
And that's like a perfect reference to front page is what he thinks is super important, but really the page behind it is what could save him.
Right. So after they get the hornet toad that is in the shoebox, they decide to go have a fancy lunch or something.
Yeah, because they've got a lot of money. They've got all of George Nelson's cash from the bank, from the bank heist.
And this is just one of those little jokes. They were talking about how it's like he was turned into a toad for fornicating with the river whores. And just as the waitress is walking up, George Clooney is like, well, we were fixing to fornicate too.
Well, that was Tim Blake Nelson said that, but
and then the woman gives them a weird look. It's like, and then as she as they put in their order or whatever, and she walks away, it's like, now you gotta, so I apologize for my friend's coarse language or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, but meanwhile, we get John Goodman, the Cyclops of the story. And he hears, hey, there's somebody I want to go talk to. So he goes up and he says he's a preacher or something.
He's
Bible salesman. That's it.
Yep.
And they decide to go have lunch under a tree where he beats them up to take their money.
You have to mention this part because Clooney is so, up to this point, assumed so smart, right? Mm-hmm. And Big Dan rips a big part of the tree off and says he's going to teach him a lesson in finance or something, basically.
And about the psychology of people.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And he fucking clubs Nelson in the face. And Clooney's just sitting there like, well, I don't get it. He's still trying to have the conversation.
He thinks he's Dan's intellectual equal still. Yeah.
Yeah, because when they first introduced, like Dan buttered him up. It's like, I can tell you have a real gift of gab like I do or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, yes, sir, I do. And he's already buttered up at that point. And basically they're trying to use one another, but one person is better at it than the other.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then he clubs Clooney, which knocks him out. And then he squishes the frog and then throws it against the tree.
Oh, it's so sad.
It's one thing to squish the frog, but when he throws it perfectly against the tree, it killed me.
Yep.
This is like one of those moments in a Coen Brothers movie that is so affecting but funny, right? It's like the scene in The Big Lebowski where they spread the ashes, right? Yep. It's like that. It's like they're so good at towing that line.
Yeah. And you have poor Tim Blake Nelson thinks, Pete's been murdered.
Right.
Yeah.
Now he's totally he's just devastated.
Yeah.
He is completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like,
there's a line too, Jeff. You talk about the little things. There's a little throwaway line. I mean, nothing's a throwaway in a Coen Brothers movie, but there's a little line. I think it's before they go to eat, and after they lose Pete, or they think he's a toad, where George Clooney's just like, we got to reset, right? I forget how he puts it, but it's like, maybe all we need is a little bit of food in our bellies and some smell in our hair. That fucking kills me.
Yeah.
he is off balance when his hair is off balance, right?
He loves them hair jellies. He's a Dapper Dan man.
Yeah. So, at this point, of course, like, Delmar is, he's upset that Pete's dead. And George Clooney, I mean, he's not totally like unfeeling towards it. However, he is, he seems maybe more upset that he got tricked. He got duped.
Yep. And this is when we find out that Pete is not actually dead.
Yes,
he is in captivity.
He is in captivity, being tortured to tell Poseidon, which we got to talk about Daniel von Bargen here for a minute.
Oh,
because
man.
we have covered a rather large swath of his career on this show.
Swath.
This was his fourth movie that we've talked about. We've done Basic Instinct, Lord of Illusions, The Postman, and now Lord of Illusions. That's a huge part that he had in that.
He's
the main bad guy.
He's the main bad guy. Nix.
And he is technically the main bad guy in this, but he's just kind of there with his sunglasses and his dark clothes and his dog, isn't it? He has a dog.
So let me throw a theory by you. And maybe this is talked about, probably is discussed in Coen Brother forums or whatever. But Daniel von Bargen's character is the devil.
I would agree. Yeah.
Because he's described by Tommy Johnson as a man who travels with his dog. He's a white guy just like you. And he also has a line later where he says the law is a human institution, indicating that he's not human.
And if all of that's not obvious enough, the way they shoot him with his sunglass goggles,
with the fire in them,
fire in the eyes, yeah.
I mean,
is that a commonly known thing, Jason? I haven't looked into this, and
I haven't looked into it, but I have to imagine that's
according to
the
Wikipedia, case. they do compare him to Poseidon, but I think that's just because in the Odyssey, it's always Poseidon. It's Poseidon who knocks them off of course out of spite for killing the Cyclops, I believe. And then because I think the Cyclops is Poseidon's son, and I think that was the first place they went to in the Odyssey.
Maybe, yeah.
But anyway, that's what knocks them off course. And then the rest of the Odyssey, Odysseus is he's vengeful towards Poseidon as Poseidon is vengeful towards him.
Right.
So
Can
in
you guys
that,
still hear me? My internet dropped out for a second there.
We can hear you right now. Yep.
We can hear you and see you. Yeah, everything's
All right,
good.
cool.
Anyway, so but anyway, he they compare him to Poseidon, I think mostly for the chase part of it. But yeah, I see what you're saying now. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
So he also in this scene they're gonna hang Pete, right?
That's if he doesn't give up the goods, they're gonna hang him.
Yeah.
But they leave that scene on a clever note too, because he says he starts praying to God, and that's when the devil lets him off the hook.
Yeah.
Basically. Says, well, hold on a minute. And then the next time we see Pete, he's still alive and he's with the chain gang again.
That's another little funny scene. They're riding in the back of a truck.
Oh man.
And George Clooney's face acting in this is great.
Oh, it's out of control good. Yep.
Yeah, because he's the top half of George Clooney's face can do things that most people's faces I don't think can. The way he furrows his brow, or he cocks an eyebrow or something like that. But like he sees Pete and he kind of sits up, and it's like, I must be seeing it. The heat must be getting to me.
Yep.
And but at the whole time, he does not tell Delmar.
Well, that's brilliant, because if Delmar had seen him in that scene, he probably would have ran out the back of the truck or done something crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they would have probably gotten. But it's like, yeah, because he asks, like, did Pete have a brother? Not that I know of. Okay, well, I guess the heat's getting to me. They just drive on. And the whole time, like, Pete is like, it looks like he's staring daggers into him, but he's not really. As we find out later, he's really, he's not. I mean, but anyway, they end up in town where we meet the
Warvey girls.
Well, we meet a lot of people in this scene in town. So we have Homer Stokes, who's the candidate for governor, who is the reform candidate.
Yep.
And he's for the little people, and he travels around with the little dwarf.
He ain't lying.
He ain't lying. And then we also meet Holly Hunter, who is Penny, who is George Clooney's wife.
Yep. Anyone else?
Right, and she's Penelope. Yep.
Right.
Yep. Most of the girls look the same age and wonder, like, how did they have 7 kids that all are the same age?
Right.
Yeah. Except for there is one baby. Yeah. Because he's like, who the hell's this?
Tell me about this one.
Yeah.
She, Holly Hunter, whatever her character's name is in this, I forget, has been telling her daughters that their father was run over by a train.
Yeah.
Because that is more, one, that, gets them out of the picture. 2, it's a more fitting. She doesn't want to tell her kids that their dad's a convict. They'd rather say that he, got run over by a train.
I have a feeling that's a very common thing back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your husband got sent up, it's like, he's dead.
Yeah. He's on the farm or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Then they, we also meet Vernon T. Waldrop, and he's basically Penny's suitor.
He's a suitor.
And
he's a suitor.
He is bona fide.
He's bona fide.
Yeah. He is also Homer Stokes' campaign manager.
He's also a good fighter.
Yes.
Oh God, that
very
killed
good
me.
boxer. Yeah.
Oh,
Another scene where Clooney's face acting is just amazing.
So good.
he gets popped in the face by the gentleman boxer.
Yep.
That is Vernon Waldrop, and the look of surprise on his face. And then he just keeps getting wailed on.
Yep.
And then he gets thrown out, and he is told that he cannot go back to the Woolworths.
Yep.
But we're not quite sure if it's just that Woolworths or the entire franchise.
That would be a problem.
When Tim Blake Nelson says that, it kills me. Is it all of them?
Or just that one?
But yeah, we find out that Holly Hunter has moved on. She's going to marry Waldrop. And then they go to a movie, like a picture show.
A little picture show. And all of a sudden, the coppers come in, and so they slink down in their chairs, and the chain gang comes in.
Oh man!
And they just hup, and they all sit down a couple rows ahead of them, and Pete turns around, and and again, they're the reactions between the three of them in this is great, because he turns around and not so quietly says, "Do not seek the treasure."
Do not seek the treasure.
It's so clever. It's so clever because in the context, it makes sense why he's acting that way, but it's also very prophetic, like how you would, have somebody give you a prophecy. Right?
Yeah, I was wondering if that was pulled somewhere from the Odyssey. That's a reference somewhere. I feel like it has to be.
Yes, but his delivery, Turturro's delivery there is just magnificent.
It truly is. It's bonkers. Complete insanity.
Ulysses can't understand what he's saying. And
like, how can you not?
And meanwhile, Delmar's like, "We thought you was a toad."
and Turturro's micro reaction to that is like, amazing. What? He's completely befuddled, and then he just counters back with his "Do not seek the treasure."
Yep. And then Tim Blake Nelson leans in and yell whispers, "We thought you." It's just such a brilliant scene.
So they realize now, okay, Pete's alive, so they go break him out. And this is when Ulysses comes clean.
Yes, because Pete is mortified that he's given up the ghost, right? He told
Yeah, it's like I
the
told
cops
them
where the treasure is.
Yeah, there's going to be an ambush, which he also did try to say in the movie theater. It's an ambush. So, and he's like, well, don't worry. There is actually no treasure. My wife is getting married in 3 days, and I have to stop that or whatever. To which Pete's like, I only had 2 more weeks to go, in my original sentence. And because I broke out, I now won't be out until 1987.
Yeah.
I'll be 85 years old.
Yeah.
And Tim Blake Nelson finds like some silver lining in it. He's like, well, I'll only be 82. But yeah, Clooney says, Everett says, well, I didn't have 2 weeks.
Yeah. I had 4 days. Yeah.
Yep.
To which that doesn't really pacify them.
No, not at all.
So they so they end up breaking into, and this is also when they find the Ku Klux Klan has captured, because they were about to go to blows, and then
they're rolling down a hill. Yeah.
And they hear the Klan meeting, and it's like this really goofy like dance number they're doing, and it's like I did for a second think about Googling whether or not that actually happens at KKK.
Oh man, I turned to Susan. I said it's the Ohio State marching band. If it was a Klan meeting.
Yeah. I would assume there were some
Ohio State on blast.
There was definite pageantry, I think, to the KKK in the 20s and 30s.
There was, and I think the point was to sort of over-exaggerate that to the point of ridiculousness. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, because they're also like dancing around like like, is it Wizard of Oz where the guards are dancing around the front of the? I don't remember. Anyway,
I don't either.
But yeah, it's goofy. Like it's all coordinated. It's like, do you have to know that before you get in? Is it kind of like the Proud Boys thing where you have to name off as many cereals as you're getting your ass kicked?
You have to audition by doing this.
Well, I like the idea of Coen Brothers jokes when you think about them have several levels usually, and that the level there for me is thinking about them rehearsing. Right? You can still do that spontaneously.
Right. No, that doesn't just break out. No.
Right.
So they're gonna lynch, like really lynch Tommy. And so they go down there and they beat up the color guard. And they're also covered in dirt, by the way.
Yeah.
So this is gonna compound.
Oh man.
another nice little addition by the Coen Brothers to get them into blackface.
So they're kind of accompanying the two that are leading Tommy to the gallows, basically, to the lynching tree. And
Big Dan's there.
Big Dan
is a Klan member.
He smells the hair jelly.
Yep. To which then he rips off the cloaks or the hoods, and there they are, and of course they're in blackface.
Yep.
From the dirt from rolling down the hill, and they all think, wait, who made them the color guard?
Yep.
Who made those colored people the color guard?
Yeah, the color guard's colored people.
And we find out that the reform candidate and his little dwarf are both part of the Klan too.
Oh man,
he's the Grand Poobah, the Dragon
Master,
or whatever you call him.
The Dragon Master,
the Dungeon Master. Yeah, the Dragon Dungeon.
Keymaster Gozer.
The Grand Poobah of the Water Buffalo. Anyway, so they basically take the Confederate flag and try to launch it, and it's coming down onto Big Dan.
Don't let that flag touch the ground.
Don't let that flag touch the ground. And he catches it before it takes out his other eye.
Yeah, that's great. Subverts your expectation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, in the Odyssey, the Cyclops is killed by a spear.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep.
By no one, quote unquote, by no one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when he anyway, so then they send the flaming cross down onto him instead. So then they make off and they get to where Penny is having her rehearsal dinner for the wedding, and there's that classic scene where they're looking around the corner and it's like Tim Blake Nelson, then John Turturro, then Tommy, then George Clooney.
Yeah,
like it's fucking Three Stooges or
Three
something.
Stooges. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Then they go in posing as the band, and of course,
well, they're not posing; they are the band. They're the Soggy Bottom Boys.
well, yes, but they disguise themselves with big beards, and
they still have no idea how popular they are.
they have no idea. So while he's talking to Penny, while Ulysses is talking to Penny, the other two are singing some real fun little hillbilly song.
Oh God, John
Turturro's
Turturro is
dance.
so good. Oh
Yeah.
And then
There's like he's doing this thing with his arms and his legs.
It's a jig.
It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. It's a hillbilly jig.
It's like a slow hillbilly jig. Yep.
Yeah, and so then so then after that song's over, well, they only got one other song in their repertoire.
Yep.
So they start singing, and of course everybody goes nuts. And it's like, oh, but then Homer Stokes comes in.
Well, before that, can I say one thing?
Yeah, go for it.
Clooney's performance here, when he realizes how big they are and the dance they do, it reminds me so much of Frank Drebin as Enrico Palazzo in The Naked Gun, because he just leans. He leans so heavily into the performance. It's just awesome. It makes me smile from ear to ear.
Oh, that's great.
Doing his dance and stuff.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then Homer Stokes comes in, and it's like, hey, those guys, arrest those guys or whatever. I am part of a secret organization.
Yeah, I don't think I need to belabor what that organization is.
And the reaction of the people too is so great here, because you cannot tell if they abhor what he's saying or are just mad that he stopped the band.
Yeah.
Which I think it's the latter.
Right.
So
They just want the Soggy Bottom Boys to keep playing. They don't care about your secret society or whatever.
Yep.
That says a lot about
man.
Society.
They're the common man. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we want our entertainment. Don't kneel before the game. Just play football. I don't.
But it was also a real.
my...
It was also a real political phenomenon at that time in the South, where political candidates co-opted music to sway the public opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's also there trying to talk Mr. Waldrop into running his campaign? Well, we got Pappy O'Daniel.
Pappy O'Daniel. Yep.
Pappy O'Daniel's there, so he is
Ever the opportunist.
Ever the opportunist sees how the crowd is turning against Homer Stokes and decides to basically, one, co-opt the fun of the concert, and two, he pardons the Soggy Bottom Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right
and
there on the spot.
also we see Holly Hunter's character turn to favor Ulysses, or whatever, because he's now bona fide.
Yeah,
Not because she loves him, not because of any other reason than he's become bigger than Waldrop.
Yeah.
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 Well, and also Waldrop's going to be ruined.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now he's, so everything's looking good. Everything's looking good. They're going to get married again. Hey, Waldrop gave her a jewel encrusted ring. So, hey, that'll work. But no, it doesn't. She wants her ring. She wants the ring that they had together.
Yep. She counts to 3, and that's it.
That's it. She made her mind up. And he's like, damn, she count to 3.
Yep.
She's so similar to her character in Raising Arizona.
Yes,
in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. So then she, as she kind of walks off, you see a mob coming. It's like, uh-oh, what's this? Well, they caught George Babyface Nelson.
Yep.
And they're gonna take him to the gallows. But
Oh
for
no,
what?
they're gonna give him the chair, is what he said.
Give him the chair.
Yeah.
Well, he's happy because he's
He's
famous
happy.
again.
Yep.
But
Yep. He's on top.
why? Why are they going to give him the chair? Because they killed the cows.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy. There's a guy in the crowd, in the mob, at the very back, leading a cow, and it's perfect.
And one of the ladies yells, "Cow killer!"
Cow killer.
Yep. Again, we don't give a shit about people. It's like we the cow is more the cow is more sympathetic than
Cows are heavily represented in this movie.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
they
also got to imagine there's a little bit of realism there too, because of the fact that money is so devalued, right?
Right.
That livestock is probably more valuable.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Or at least certainly this is during a time pre-widespread, post industrial revolution, pre-widespread industrialization, where farms are still the center, the key thing in the country.
Yeah.
Yep. At this point in time, the concern was more transporting the stuff from the farm than it was the actual, building of, I guess, of things. But anyway, so it looks like they're going to be okay. They're going to go however many. Apparently, the cabin they got to go to find the ring, which she thinks is in a roll top desk, is many, many, many minutes and hours away.
Yep.
But not movie
George
time.
does not want to go.
Right.
Well, they go. The four of them go because Tommy's now there, and the coppers are waiting for him, and and then Daniel von Bargen comes out and it's like, all right, end of the line. Basically, you're gonna get hung right here for this, and they said, well, we got pardoned by the governor of Mississippi.
It's all over the radio.
It's all over oh, is it now?
They put it out on the radio. Yep.
Oh, did they? Well, we don't have radios.
Yep.
Oh, fuck. So they're going to get hung. Well, right then is the moment in which the
flooding of the valley.
The flooding of the valley happens. The dam is broken, and they are saved by basically it's kind of a Deus Ex Machina.
Well, this is straight out of the Odyssey as well, because George Clooney drops to his knees and prays to God, and in the Odyssey, Zeus creates a storm that actually prevents Odysseus from, I think, getting to his island. But it's right there. It's pulled straight out of
doesn't the flood land him on the beach of Ithaca?
Oh, it might actually, yeah.
Because at that point he had lost all of his men, I think.
Yeah.
And he's begging for
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yep.
You can call it a Deus Ex Machina, but the good
how about a Zeus
Ex Machina? There we go.
But that's the fine line this movie toes, because you know that this flood is going to happen.
Right.
The entire film. But Clooney is riding the line of skepticism the entire movie.
Well, you could also make the argument that he just knows it's about to happen. He's buying the time.
Could be that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he all but makes that argument after they surface from the water.
Right. He's like, there's a perfectly scientific reason for this. But then what do they see on top of the house?
A cow.
A cow.
Yeah.
Which was told by the blind seer, which the way that he, like, Clooney recognizes that, he's saying it was just in time, and then he looks up or something like that, and he says just in time, and he sees the cow, and he's like, oh shit, maybe there is something more.
And then, Tommy, what you riding there?
It's a roll top desk.
Which of course has, and I'm air quoting, the ring in it, right?
Right.
Yep.
So he brings it back.
Yep.
And it's her aunt's ring or something like that.
Yeah.
And
it's wrong ring.
She's like, well, you got to go back and get the ring. It's like, well, it's at the bottom of a lake. She's like, I don't care.
Counted to 3. I've counted to 3.
I've counted to 3, and that's great because you're not going to get a sequel to Oh Brother, and why would you want one?
Right.
But at this point that
John Turturro might make one about his character, though.
Yeah, he might. But Ulysses
Holy
will never
shit.
stop. Ulysses will never stop with his adventures. He
Right.
can't. He'll always be sent on another adventure.
Well,
Yeah,
and
that's
he'll
what he
always
is.
be chasing Penny too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And so also what's trailing behind them? All of the daughters on a chain gang, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Singing Angel
He's
Band.
traded one ball and chain for another.
Right.
Yep.
They're singing Angel Band, which I actually have an interesting relationship with that song. I did not know that song until it was recorded by the Monkees at one point. It was on one of their Missing Links volumes that they did where they released the songs they recorded but didn't get selected for albums. And it's like, hey, I know that song. Never putting 2 and 2 together that they probably just did it because it was a standard they didn't have to pay anybody for.
Right.
But
and one of the girls stops on the train track, right? And you see,
and she sees, and the old blind black man is singing it too.
Yep.
Yep.
And he's fading off, and then they fade to black and white, just kind of how the movie started too.
Yep.
What an excellent fucking story.
It is. It's good. And so let me get to what I was kind of teasing at the beginning here. There's one of the things I like the most about this movie is that it's told almost like a situational comedy, but not like situational comedies like like Friends or Cheers or something like that. It's told in a way where you have these people who should not be good at anything happens to be good at almost everything in some way, shape, or form. Like, yes, they come across some struggles, like they get beat up by Big Dan, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Big Dan.
Big Dan. Yeah, I was like, wait, his name was Dan on Roseanne, and we're talking about comedies. Anyway, but like they show up to make money singing, and they're the best singers ever. There's no reason for that. They shouldn't be good at anything. They're kind of idiots, but they're good at everything. And it's and what's funny about the movie ending on a song that I first recognized as a Monkey song, that's what this movie kind of reminds me of. Every episode of that show, they had to do something and try to figure out a way that somehow works when it shouldn't, or like the Three Stooges, or like Laurel and Hardy. How many times did they do different jobs or different things they shouldn't be good at? But hey, just for this episode, Mo, Larry, and Curly are fucking dentists or something. How did that happen? It shouldn't happen, but they are, or whatever, and it's stuff like that makes this movie that much more fun for me. It also makes me think a lot of The Simpsons, where they're going to be exactly as good as they need to be for whatever situation they're in, and they shouldn't survive. They shouldn't be able to make it through this, but somehow they do, which is also funny because not once, but twice, there have been Simpsons episodes called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Interesting.
Well, it goes back further than that. It's the perfect segue because the Coen Brothers, like as I was saying as well at the beginning of the episode, wear their influences on their sleeve, but they disguise their influences generationally. And a huge influence on their writing style is Preston Sturges.
Mm-hmm.
Preston Sturges made Sullivan's Travels. He made I Married a Witch. And what he did was he took the screwball comedy of the era and he elevated it with dialogue that was mature, that was I guess sort of more folksy and naturalistic, right? And a lot of the way the Coen Brothers write, I believe, is directly influenced by the writing of Preston Sturges. And I think more than anything, they've made a Preston Sturges film here. In the fact, there's an obvious clue in the fact that "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" The name of the movie comes from a movie within the movie in Sullivan's Travels.
Yeah.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was the name of the movie that the main character in Sullivan's Travels wanted to make about the Great Depression. That would have been a departure from his comedies, his screwball comedies that he always made. And the studio didn't want it in the movie. They're like, no, you can't do it. But he's dead set on it. So what he does is he goes off on a journey to understand the common man and understand the toils and the troubles of the common man, because he wants to make a movie about the common man for the common man. He's going to call it Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, set in the Great Depression. What he learns at the end of the movie is that what the common man really needs is something to make them laugh, something to give them joy. They don't want to wallow in their own self-pity. They want something that's going to lift them up. So and of course the whole twist in Sullivan's Travels is that the studio has finally agreed to let him make his movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but he says, no, I don't want to make that movie anymore. I want to make comedies so that so I can keep giving something back to these people that so sorely need to laugh.
That's a great anecdote.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a popular term too. I mean, it obviously was born out of that, but it's been, like I said, I mean, it's popular enough to where 1991 was the first time The Simpsons used that title. It was for when Danny DeVito was Homer's brother, the car designer, and then they used it again in 2009 with the H and O.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it's yeah, I mean, it's a popular phrase, and it's and it kind of, you know, it does kind of mean something here too, because you do kind of have you end up with a little bit of brotherhood at the end, but you also understand what's more important to the common person, you know, the soggy bottom boys, the
Entertainment
and the comfort of just reelecting the incumbent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, power of incumbency is partially due to being, you know, complacent and being
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's yeah. So there, you know, that just, those are, and you know, obviously they you know, they make a friend along the way too with Tommy.
Well, and they become friends because
yeah. Well, they become brothers, really.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, this is a very, very pleasantly fun movie. I don't think, I mean, even though it talks about like some fairly serious topics, I mean, hell, there's a Ku Klux Klan scene in this.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's still played very unoffensive or inoffensive. It's just a nice little comedy with a lot of
great acting,
a lot of great acting, a lot of great shots,
a lot of great music,
and really, you know, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Cinematography.
Yeah, one of Roger Deakins' many Oscar losses.
Yeah. Yep. So he finally won for Blade Runner, right?
Blade Runner, yep. 2049.
Nice.
He shot my favorite.
And didn't he win 2 years in a row? Because he won for 1917 as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he also shot my favorite Bond movie, Skyfall.
Oh, yeah, he did. That's right. Yeah, that's a beautifully shot film.
Yep. So, yeah. Chuck, this was excellent. This is an excellent choice.
Oh, thank you.
You did good.
Did you mention at the top that that's a 20th anniversary this year?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Let's just close out this year with some more
Oh,
anniversaries. How about that?
Sure.
I'm down with that. Let's do it.
You know, I think a lot of people forget that 40 years ago, somebody saved every one of us. And its 40th birthday is actually this week, but we'll talk about it next week.
I'm really happy too, because Hot Hail would not have been fun.
Hot hail.
Oh yeah, no, I mean the moon was about to crash into our planet. People forget about it, but I mean, if it wasn't for the star quarterback of the New York Jets, Mr. Flash Gordon,
and Dr. Zarkov,
yeah, he did all right.
don't discount his part in saving every one of us.
Well, let's talk about that next week on the 40th anniversary of Flash Gordon.
Gordon's alive.
Gordon's alive.
Chuck, I know I'm sorry that this is an audio format show because I know you are coming in your cosplay as Voltan.
Yes.
I've got my lizard.
I think Chuck's just going to do the whole episode as Voltan.
Oh my God, please do.
Well, tune in next week to find out if I do.
Yes. So we're going to talk about that next week. Hey, this upcoming Monday. Oh, no, let's talk about this upcoming Saturday first. It was supposed to be the review of No Time to Die for 00 Saturdays. That didn't happen. So all of December is going to be various rankings and countdowns and the whatnots. So that's what we got. That's what we got for that. Stay tuned. Check that out. It's just one man's opinion. I could be wrong on some of the stuff. I don't think I am, but I might be. Let me look at what the first one is. The first one that we're going to do is top 10 pre-title sequences. That's a very important piece to the Bond legacy, and I wanted to talk about them. So
nice. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's this Saturday. On Monday of next week, Monster Mondays number 101, starting off another 100 with Attack of the Giant Leeches. That's a fun one. That's a fun little Roger Corman flick. So tune in for that on Monday. For B-Movie Enema, December is a little bit of a mishmash of stuff. This week I have the 1973 classic Gator Bait.
Yeah,
with Claudia Jennings. That's always fun to watch her do things. And exactly 1 month from today, January 2nd, B-Movie Enema the series.
Woo!
Starts on the YouTubes. So that should be fun. Should be a good time. Watch a movie with me. Do stuff. I mean, it's already recorded, but you can sit there and watch the episode. I'm going to shut up now. Jason, where can they find our shit?
FilmSeizure.com is where home base resides. Go there. Everything we write about, talk about is there. But you can also get links out to all of your favorite podcast outlets like Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, if I didn't already say that. Lots of different places.
Yeah,
YouTube.
We're very highly represented, and we're also now on Amazon through Audible. So
there you go. So check us out. And also, don't forget to shoot us an email every now and then. We like to hear from you. We like suggestions for movies. We like to hear what you thought about our episodes. So send us an email at filmseizure@gmail.com.
You can also hit us up on social media outlets like Facebook and Twitter and Instagrams. So do that, guys. Do that. Guys and gals. Why am I always saying guys? Guys and gals. Everybody, come check it out. So next week, Flash Gordon, and it's probably going to be a mess because we're all going to be impersonating something, I'm sure. Whether it's Queen or Voltan or Ming or Zarkov or the brief moment that Porkins is in the movie before he gets killed. Something we're gonna be making major asses of ourselves, I'm sure. So, but anyway, happy 20th anniversary to Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Excellent selection, Chuck. So until next week, I am Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Chuck Moore.
I'm Jason Oliver, and you have been listening to Film Seizure.
Meow, meow, meow.
Hey,